Hello and welcome to my channel. This will be the fic entitled Heisting the Heroes Gala by MVickery. I will be posting the details in the description. So without further ado, let's start. Summary. What crime is most commonly committed? Theft would be the answer to that question. And now that Izuku Midoriya has been told his task for the end of the year exams, he can't help but feel things may be a tiny bit too hard for him to do. Like stealing a priceless artefact from UA? Well, it's under the control of the Hero Public and Safety Commission, no less. Impossible. And what does Nedzu mean? He has 3 more precious items to steal from renowned heroes. In simple terms, Izuku Midoriya has to undergo a heist against UA itself to stop the commission from taking over their education. He gathers allies and goes through detailed political movements to make sure the commission give him what he wants, and he loves his new friends with all of his heart. He just hopes that they realize they are his friends soon. Chapter 1. The Domino Effect. What crime is the most commonly committed? Different countries spot different answers. Some places, such as New Zealand, have a higher rate of assault or minor violence, while in Egypt there is a higher rate of corruption and drug trafficking. Despite this, however, there is one crime that stands above all as being one of the most reported and apparent in modern times: theft. Pickpocketing, housebreaking, larceny, burglary, shoplifting, mugging, extortion, and just plain robbery. The official government page of America's FBI states that every 5.5 seconds a theft of personal property takes place, which is exactly why it's so crucial that we keep what is important to us close. Modern technology has kept up so far, at least, but as our resources grow, criminals begin to learn. Lockpicks on higher security doors, robbers for drawers, and simple USB to import certain data. As we grow our defenses, attacks will only get worse. The same certainly happened by the time quirks were introduced into the mix of things. Which brings us to the moral of this story. It takes UA 3 weeks to host a celebratory gala event for students, politicians, heroes, and other highly trained attendees, but it will only take Izuku Midoriya that very same amount of time to bring it all crashing to the ground. It's his final exam after all. Go beyond, Plus Ultra! When Izuku Midoriya was 6 years old, his apartment was broken into. Oftentimes it would be just him and his mother in the house, and while Inko Midoriya was a strong woman, she had to be to bear having such a worthless child. She didn't have the ability to be in multiple places at once. The game Heroes and Villains had lost its shine after his 4th birthday. Before then, he'd had a chance, but then on the off chance a group of kids would accept him into their fold, he'd only ever been invited to play the role of a hostage. The only role in any game where you could disappear and nobody would notice. Workless kids were good at disappearing after all. Why should he be any different? His mother was only one person after all, and each time he begged her before to play the villain, it's always mostly been the same game. One person versus another singular player. It grew too much to bear the loneliness when he'd hit 5, and Izuku politely took Inko aside to ask if they could maybe try something new. Izuku was good at hiding, and hide-and-seek was fun. Sure, a 3-bedroom apartment didn't have the most available hiding spots, but Izuku grew crafty. He'd learned to position cushions behind curtains and shoes at their bottom to appear as if he were there. He'd hidden under mattresses and chairs, as well as blankets and washing. He hid in the bathroom stall as a teenager, bento in hand, and blood dripping to the floor in steady droplets. He'd dive behind garbage dumps and alleyways to hide from pursuers, and would run into the house full speed each time they arrived, bagged with groceries to hide in wait as his mother unpacked their supplies before eventually heading after him. And it was one of those times he'd crawl into his own mother's closet to peek out of a slowly widening crack in the oak finish, only to realize something was off. Glass peppered the floorboards and all drawers lay open. Clothing lay unfolded as if it had been tossed, and his mom's work laptop was certainly not where it was supposed to be. As his 6-year-old mind finally came to terms with the fact that many things were off, the perpetrators had finally arrived. The first had their lounge television in his possession. The moderately-sized item was held in place by 4 clamps that hugged the item snugly against the robber's back, obviously a mutation quirk for him. But as young Izuku began to quiver, the other thief stepped into his line of sight. This was Izuku Midoriya's first ever interaction with a real villain. His features were fully hidden by dark clothing, a standard robbery uniform one could wear with only cold yellow eyes peeking out of the balaclava obscuring his features. And the aura had been threatening. Izuku held back tears as the sheer aura of bloodlust which he had believed at the time to only be possible from the use of a quirk hit him. A gasp tore itself from his throat as the man entered his line of sight and simply just stood there. And in a snap, those cold yellow eyes had locked onto green, with only separation between the two being flimsy old oak closet, some coats, and a few feet of space. Izuku would never know just how long he stared at the man, and how long the man stared at him. He'd wished for a hero like All Might, or really anyone, to save him, but nobody had come. Izuku Midoriya at the time was still absent-mindedly putting away groceries, not once even noticing the fact that the TV stand behind her was empty, or that her phone, which had been under charge, wasn't there anymore. And then, after however long of just simply staring, the two slipped away. Goods were in their possession, and one lone boy was stuck left in a closet, struggling to breathe. Quirkless kids were good at disappearing after all. Why should he be any different? He'd stayed there until his mom entered the room and screamed. Inko searched for Izuku before even calling the police, but when they did arrive, it was far too late. They'd been briefly questioned over the events, but other than that, the items were replaceable, and whatever insurance wouldn't cover, the near unlimited pockets of Hisashi Midoriya could. He never played hide-and-seek after that. The duo were caught 4 months later, having stolen from 6 other residences and 2 major shoplifting chains. Their faces were brought up briefly on the news and caused Izuku Midoriya to cry tears of relief. Izuku Midoriya, upon searching the 2 criminals, found them sentenced to 3 years imprisonment, and their quirks were stated on the public registry all convicted criminals were required to adhere to. 2 minor mutation quirks, one having 4 adjustable tendrils over the trapezius and latissimus dorsi, while the other providing vital structural support to the auditory ossicles of the ears. The bloodlust have never been something quirk-related, but merely used. The 2 had only been stealing for extra money, not to hurt people, but to simply survive. And this provided Izuku with the perfect lesson on how even the scariest villains to him were people too, as well as the lesson on how even the most useless of powers could be used to incite fear and chaos. It'd been one of the reasons he'd fully gotten into his quirk analysis, despite having started at an earlier age. The never-ending opportunities that quirks held were simply too bountiful to comprehend, and his mind thirsted for information. Many years later, he'd meet the hero killer, Stain, and remembered this bloodlust. The memories from that moment of time while he was 6 sharply came to mind, but were repressed backwards in lieu of the more important events going on around him. The same to be said the moment he had gone to save Bakugo Katsuki from kidnapping at the hands of All For One's sheer amount of dominating power. But even though they are now in the dorm system, that wouldn't necessarily equate to them being safe, would it? This was the first part of this series. This fic has 4 chapters, but I will probably split the chapters into more parts because they are really long. Bye!